Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Wizards podcast. It's your host, the real Ed Oliver. I just want to thank you guys for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. And today we have special guest Troy Haliburton from the Washington City Paper. How you feeling today, man?
I'm doing all right, Ed, man. It's good to be back on the platform with you, man. It's summertime and summer league is getting ready to start, and I feel like Wizards Twitter is buzzing right now. So it's good to get on here and talk about some good old bullets forever basketball.
Yes, sir. So of course the trade Tommy Shepard made yesterday. Bringing in Monte Moore, sending out KCP, sending out Ish Smith. What were your initial thoughts on the trade?
I mean, I love the trade. I think when you look at it from a personnel standpoint, I think this is one of the rare situations where both teams can honestly look at, what they got back and what they yielded and say that they won the trade. I think that the Wizards, from a positional standpoint, the Wizards desperately needed a point guard. They actually didn't have a point guard on the roster before yesterday, unless you're counting Cassius Winston out there. But really, I mean, they needed a guy to come in who can actually play the point guard position. And Monte Morris has proven, over his 5-year NBA career that, he's a guy who is a reliable, not only backup point guard, but he's proven that since Jamal Murray has been injured, that he's capable of coming in and starting on the NBA level. And going back out was Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. And, I know that he came over in that Russell Westbrook deal, but the Wizards really kind of had like a gluttony of wing players. And so to send him out on his expiring contract, I think that, that deal works out great for both teams.
Definitely, yeah, and it's crazy. Yeah, Cassius Winston, he's going to be with the Sixers in the summer league team, so they didn't even have him on the roster. And
Tomas, well, look at that, man. I tried to include him in the mix, and knowing that, he was never, ever going to be like a factor in the NBA going forward, anyway.
Right, yeah, and then Tomas leaves for Barcelona. Ish Smith, you kind of knew he was on his way out. Now he's on his 13th, 14th team. Congrats to him for accomplishing something like that. But yeah, KCP, he was our best defender, our best 3-point shooter. So it's intriguing. And then, you bring in Monte Morris, who's a good 3-point shooter, good defender, can pass the ball, doesn't need the ball in his hands. Barton from Baltimore, Will the Thrill. And guys that, Wes Unseld knows he coached up, very comfortable with, kind of like Ron Rivera getting a bunch of Panthers guys in. So you want to be comfortable and get guys in that So how do you like Monte Morris's fit next to Bradley Beal?
I love Monte Morris's fit next to Bradley Beal. I mean, he's a very sturdy point guard. I think the biggest benefit that he brings to the table on the court is that his great assist to turnover ratio. This is a guy who's not going to turn the ball over at all. He's going to protect the rock. He can shoot the basketball. He can play both on and off of the basketball. So if Bradley Beal wants to get into his bag and have the ball in his hands, for different stretches, then Monte Morris is more than capable of, standing on the wing and spotting up and shooting. But he's also shown that he can create the offense and run an offense. And so I think this is a guy who has hit big shots in the playoffs. This is a guy who's played in big playoff games. This is a guy who's going to bring a lot to the table. And so when you look at, from a talent standpoint, I'd say that he's probably one of the top 30 point guards in the NBA, and he'd probably be in that 25 to 30 range, but that makes him a starting quality player in the NBA. And so that makes it a clear upgrade as far as what the Wizards were able to do from a talent standpoint yesterday.
Definitely, yeah. I think they want a guy that can make plays without needing the ball in his hands. Last year, it just did not work with Spencer Dinwiddie at all, and Spencer's just known as a scorer, a 6-man. So Monte, he doesn't need the ball. Like you said, he can shoot the lights out. Doesn't turn the ball over. And I just don't think they were going to find that big swing point guard. Malcolm Brogdon was just going to cost a little too much with a first-round pick. That's what they reportedly wanted. John Wall going to the Clippers. So that, that dream of him coming back home didn't end up happening. A lot of Wizards fans wanted that happen. And Colin Sexton, I know that's a name that's flying around. I just didn't see that being a good fit with Brad. So I think Monte's a good fit. Is he a superstar point guard or all-star point guard? He's not, but I think he is a solid fit for what the Wizards are looking for. How did you feel about Will Barton? Do you think he's going to be here in DC to start the season, or do you see him possibly being moved as a trade piece for the Wizards?
Well, I see him here to start the season for sure. Whether he finishes his season as a Wizard, I don't know. I think that Will Barton, it depended upon what role he's able to carve out within his team. It doesn't really make sense to be giving him a lot of minutes, because that really might kind of suppress the development of some of the Wizards' other wing players. They just drafted Johnny Davis. They have Corey Kispert, who's coming off a strong finish to his rookie year. I think that those guys are probably deserving of minutes, at that backup, 2 or 3 position. But Will Barton, I think that he gives them great insurance and great depth for next season. This is a guy who's a proven NBA scorer. I think that he's a guy who can create offense for himself. And for stretches of the season next year, if you're missing the Bradley Beal, if you're missing guys in the starting lineup, this is a guy who can come in and microwave and get some points and bunches and quick stretches.
Definitely, yeah. Will is a good scorer. I do think if they do keep him, he can definitely help them out. He's a good 3-point shooter. He can move without the ball. He's a guy, and they need guys that can score and that can break guys down one-on-one, and can use both hands, dribbling the ball, getting open shots. I think he can be a microwave scorer. Whether he comes off the bench, I could see him coming off the bench. I could see him starting too, just the familiarity with West, and I could see him coming off the bench too, being a really a good 6-man, just a microwave scorer for the Wizards. So I think he was a good pickup too. Could they use him in a trade piece? Who knows, to bring in some more talent. But I do want to get to the rotation. Who do you think would be in that starting 5? Who will come off the bench? Because you talked about the development of the younger guys like Denny, Rui, and Kispert, and if the trade moved the needle at all. But before we do get to that, this episode is brought to you by Arcade 1-Up. Boom shakalaka. We have big news. The one, the only NBA Jam is back. Arcade 1-Up, the leader in at-home retro arcade games, is not only bringing the best game ever back, but they made it bigger than ever with a, wait for it, Shaq edition. People are obsessed with NBA Jam, and I'm thrilled to tell our listeners that you can once again play hoops with NBA legends in the Arcade Classic. Jump clear across the court and set the ball on fire in one of these sports games ever to feature real and digitized NBA licensed teams. No fouls, no free throws, and no quarters required. Compete with friends and family through all new Wi-Fi leaderboards, making you more connected than ever. Pre-order now from arcade1up.com. That's arcade1up.com for an estimated early September ship date. Arcade 1-Up is the place for fun. They've got even more classics like a Golden Tee, Mortal Kombat, and many others starting at just $399. Check this out. They are giving away a NBA Jam Shaq edition to a Locked On listener. They are giving away a NBA Jam Shaq. Enter for a chance to win a game console for your man cave at arcade1up.com/lockedon. That's arcade1up.com/lockedon. You got till July 8th to enter to win NBA Jam Shaq edition, to win a NBA Jam Shaq edition console. Don't miss out. Enter today. Who are you going to play with? All right. So about the rotation, I still feel like the Wizards do have somewhat of a log jam at that 4 spot. Denny, Rui, Kispert. Well, Kispert is more of a 2, but they still have Will Barton at the 3, Kuz at the 4. Rui plays the 4 too. Denny plays the 4. So they still have a lot of guys there. And then I guess if we're going to throw Anthony Gill there too on the roster. What do you see if this roster does stay the same, which I don't think it will? Who would you have in your starting 5?
All right. Well, if the current roster as is, I would probably have Morris at the 1, Bill at the 2, Denny at the 3. No, actually, I'm gonna take that back. I'm gonna go Rui at the 3, Kuzma at the 4, and Porzingis at the 5. I think that coming into the season, I think that Wes Unseld Jr. will probably be willing to experiment with the lineup of Rui and Kuzma and trying to see what that looks like, given the team ultimate size up front. I know that Denny is the probably the fan favorite to be starting at small forward, but I just think that the franchise, I think that they like what Rui brings from an offensive standpoint a little bit more, and so I think that Rui would get that opportunity to start before they would go to Denny, and then that would leave on the bench. That would leave Will Barton, Kispert, Denny, and Gafford as the mainstays in the rotation, and then I guess you can throw in our guy. What, yeah, what's my guy? He just named him.
Ooh, Kispert.
No, Anthony Gill, man.
Oh, Gill.
Yeah, how can I forget about my guy Anthony Gill? He's going to get minutes as well. But I mean, I think that's a good 9 to 10 man rotation that the Wizards have. But I think that Rui would start over Denny just because of what I believe that the franchise, how they view Rui instead of the public, how they view Denny.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a tough one. I do think Rui, of course, is the more offensively polished player. Defensively, Denny's better, but I think Rui just brings more to the table offensively. He's just got to move his feet. The dunks on Tobias Harris and Anthony Davis. We just got to see that more consistently the aggressiveness. I actually have Will Barton starting. I just feel like Wes, I'm not gonna say he's biased, but I just feel like Will may start at the 3. That's just what I see happening. Johnny Davis would be behind Brad. But I know Barton, he's smaller, and KCP was 6'5", 6'4", and they still started KCP. So, but it can really interchange. It's going to be interesting who starts at the 3 spot because it is going to be an open competition. Denny just has to improve on making layups and finishing around the rim and dribbling with his left hand. So until he can get that down pat, then he may have to compete harder for the starting spot. But just right now, I just feel like I see Will starting at the 3 and Brad starting at the 2.
Yeah, basically you just said Denny has to improve of everything basketball related. Yeah, if he could just figure out how to dribble and have a left hand and maybe a few things on the court, he should play. Yeah, no, I think that I wouldn't be surprised if Wes Unseld Jr. were to go ahead and start Will Barton. But the Denny thing, I think that that his deficiencies really don't allow him to be relied on from that coaching staff. And I think that Rui, I mean, him shooting like that 40% from 3-point range down the stretch, I'm telling you, I think that, and mind you, that I believe that the team is going to be starting playing preseason games in Japan coming into this season. This is beyond basketball in a sense that, they're going to be marketing Rui a lot. And I just think that he's going to be coming into the season as a starter for the Wizards, for a lot of different reasons. But mainly because that he showed that he can space the floor and that he just brings a lot more to the table as far as offensive versatility. And he's also a guy who has a lot of size on the defensive end too. So I just think that that they're going to give him every opportunity to come out there and show the world what he can do.
Yeah, it was weird towards the end of the year, like even after the minute restriction, like they asked Wes, and Wes still wasn't playing Rui even really more than 20 minutes a game. I think it was because of the defense, but that was very interesting. So yeah, like you brought up a good point with the marketing aspect. They are playing those preseason games in Japan, so they do want to market Rui. They all just have to earn it. It's going to be a tough competition in camp for sure. But yeah, Rui certainly has the talent. I think it's between him and Will and Denny at the moment. And then we just don't know who the backup point guard is going to be. Is it going to be Chris Dunn is on the Summer League roster, so they don't have one. Johnny Davis is the backup shooting guard. So they are reportedly interested in Victor Oladipo. Do want to, get to free agency because free agency, it starts at 6. I know the moratorium starts at 6. We're going to get to the Bradley Beal decision talk, of course, towards the end of the episode, but I know they want to add a backup point guard. It was reported, Chase Hughes reported that they're interested in DeLon Wright, Avery Bradley, and Javon Carter. Victor Oladipo was reported by Bleacher Report. Have you heard anything about them being interested in any other point guards or any other free agents? And who are those names do you think the Wizards should target?
Yeah, well, I still think that, I still think that Malcolm Brogdon thing is actually a very real thing too. Like I think
Mhm.
that a lot of people think that that's a done deal. That the Wizards are kind of, because they went and got Monte Morris, that they're out of the Malcolm Brogdon sweepstakes. And I don't believe that to be the case. I think that they're very much still interested in Brogdon, and that I think that if they might try to wear Indiana down as far as what they're trying to give up. They're not trying to give up a lot of future draft capital, and they're trying to swing it with possibly Kuzma and one of their young prospects. And I think that's still a very much a possibility. But if that's not the aiming high aspect of still trying to go out and get Brogdon, I think that the name that I'm hearing is DeLon Wright, is a guy that they could bring in, that they could actually afford, and that he will give them some more defensive versatility, as a backup point guard. I think that before they swung this Monte Morris trade, I thought that they were very much looking and interested in Tyus Jones, coming from the Memphis Grizzlies. I think that that's a name that they might still be trying to consider. If they can get him to sign for that mid-level exception around, I think it was like between $8 to $10 million a year. But I think that he and his agents are looking for a little bit more than that. But I wouldn't count that name out as a name that the Wizards would be looking at either. But yeah, like I think that really people are assuming that they brought in Monte Morris to be the starting point guard, but I wouldn't let go of the fact that they might be trying to swing for a guy like Brogdon. I'm hearing that that's still very much in play.
Okay. Yeah. So who do you think they would package up? You said Kuzma. You still
And
think
one of the younger players. So honestly, it'd probably be either Kuzma and Denny or Kispert. So I don't think that Rui is on his way out. I actually don't even think that Pacers or other teams are interested in Rui at this point. Really from a scouting standpoint, from what I've been hearing is that teams really want Kispert, and they would accept Denny. But I think that a package of Denny and Kuzma and some other draft compensation, smaller draft compensation, some second round picks, might be able to swing a Brogdon deal. From my understanding, the Pacers were interested in trying to get that number 10 pick, but the Wizards never ever put that pick on the table in negotiations with the Pacers. But yeah, I mean, if you look at, I love Kuzma, but he's going to be a free agent next year, and who knows if they're going to be able to pay him. I think that they really should look into trying to trade and swing for the fences here and bring in Malcolm Brogdon.
Yeah, Malcolm Brogdon, he's intriguing. I mean, the only thing is just the injuries. Will he be available? He's had a lot of injuries, and the money, making the money work. So they would have Malcolm Brogdon as the starting point, and Monte coming off the bench, and then Brad at the 2, Johnny at the 2. Okay, so that would be very intriguing. How about Victor Oladipo? Have you heard anything with that?
Yeah, I haven't heard. I've heard that they were interested, but I don't think that Victor has a few different teams who are pursuing him. Getting ready to pursue him as free agency is getting ready to begin. I just think the Wizards are going to be one of the finalists as far as one of those teams. I think that if it turns into like a game of musical chairs, and all those other teams ended up getting the better prospects, and Victor Oladipo has to come to the Wizards, then I think that might be something he would consider. But other than that, I don't think that like the Wizards are going to be one of his finalists. So I just don't see that as being a realistic landing spot for the Wizards.
So yeah, Victor's not coming back home. So that would be.
Yeah, I think that there are better options out there basketball wise for him to go to. So the Wizards are going to be a list of teams that he will consider, but I just don't. I think that he will have better opportunities with better situations for him to go out and be able to get his value back up.
Right. Okay. So before we do get into some more free agency talk and then about Bradley Beal's decision, this episode is brought to you by Bet Online. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's NHL playoffs and Major League Baseball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Yeah, it's intriguing that you said that they're still going after Malcolm Brogdon. I just feel like, with this hire, this is a guy that Wes likes, and Monte Morris he's familiar with. And then, last year, had some of the problems with the locker room that he, was still learning as a first-year guy, policing the locker room, having a voice over the locker room. I just feel like he's they got in some guys that he can connect with and he's more comfortable with. So, I feel like, they would start Monte, but if they are trying to swing, I do feel like they need to take some more swings and bring in more talent. Do you ever think that they even had a chance at DeJounte Murray? I know a lot of Wizards fans on social media were just very upset about DeJounte Murray. Did they have any chance at getting him, or do you think that they should have tried harder to go after somebody like a DeJounte Murray?
I don't know why Wizards fans are upset. They never had a chance of getting DeJounte Murray. That was never something that was going to happen. I don't think because honestly, I don't think that Tommy Shepard, as the general manager or team president, I don't think that he has the type of leeway to use those type of future draft capital to go out and get a player. I don't think that he just doesn't have that possibility. Like the Hawks, you have to have their ownership say, yes, we're willing to give up all of these future assets to go out and win now. And that just wasn't. It was never a possibility for the Wizards. Any Wizards fan who believed that was literally kind of living in a fantasy world, and it was really kind of a pipe dream. Like it was never ever going to happen. And I feel like a lot of times, Wizards Twitter can get caught up in dialogue of things of great possibilities and it's good. It sounds good on Twitter. It sounds now we're in Laker fandom where we're putting up photoshops and doing all this crazy stuff of things that are literally never ever going to happen. DeJounte Murray was never ever coming to DC. It was never a possibility. So I don't know why people ever got their hopes up. I hate to be the bearer of bad news in this case.
Mm-hmm. Now, is that because you look at the trade, the Hawks gave up 3 first-rounders, they gave up Gallo. So do you think it could have been possible they could have just gave up, 3 first-round? I know there's some protections and whatnot on the pick because of the Wall and Westbrook trade, but, do you think they could have tried to do a Kuz and 3 first-round picks?
This ownership group was never going to allow them to trade away 3 first-round draft picks for DeJounte Murray. I actually don't even think the 3 first-round draft picks for DeJounte Murray is even worth it. Like, I don't think that he's like I like him as a player, but like we're talking about trade and draft compensation that's on a Drew Holiday level, and I don't think he's just that type of player. But no, all of this like comes down to what Tommy Shepard was even allowed to do as a team president, general manager, and I don't think that he was ever given the green light to even negotiate those type of trade packages. Like that type of draft compensation was never going to be going out of the door for the Wizards ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do think they need to take a swing. DeJounte Murray he might not have been the right guy. There's not a lot of guys available. He's still young, 26 on a $16 million deal, just made an all-star game. He did make a defensive team in 2018 as well. So I think he definitely would have helped, but I definitely agree with what you're saying. You know more about ownership in the front office, that what they're willing to do and what they're willing not to do. I think we all know that, of course, Ted will never ever tank. So we know that too. But, they do need to pick a direction. I think they need to either take a swing or do a rebuild. And right now it kind of just feels like they're middling right now. I think the pickups of Monte and Will Barton are good pickups, but do they really move the needle? Do you think the trade moved the needle at all? And what's the ceiling for them with this roster right now?
Yeah, I mean, Ed, you hit the nail on the head. They're middling right now. They can't even say that they're riding in the middle of the pack because, like, honestly, they're on the lower end of teams in the Eastern Conference right now. I would say that, that trade for Monte Morris really doesn't move the needle all that much. I'd say that the ceiling for the Wizards is, man, play-in tournament again. Like I honestly, I can't see them. I can't see them finishing as a top 5 seed in the Eastern Conference. So and there's only one other spot that I can't see them finishing top 5. And the really, I guess the only other spot would be the 6th seed that would have them avoid the play-in. I think this is a play-in team again, and the fact that they are really just not picking a lane as far as where they want to go, like it just doesn't really make sense for me that they're getting ready to make Bradley Beal the highest paid player in the NBA. This is a guy who wasn't an All-Star last year. He wasn't an All NBA player last year, and he wasn't going to be an All-Star even before he had his injury. I know a lot of people would say, well, he was hurt last year. No, he wasn't an All-Star before his injury. Like this is a guy who struggled last season. I think that he took a step back, and the Wizards, they can't really afford to not pick a lane at this point. They're getting ready to pay this guy, $250 million, and they're going to be barely competing for a playoff spot. And it really just doesn't make sense. And then again, from a standpoint, you're looking at ownership. How are they going to rate it? How can you justify paying a guy $250 million, but then also next trade deadline they're going to be probably making moves to deduct the luxury tax? Like they have two conflating strategies, and I don't think that they've done a very good job of justifying the moves and stuff that they're making to their fan base. Like they're pretty much selling us a bill of goods of they're going out and making these acquisitions and trying to compete, but what are we competing for? I think that they're not being realistic. And I think that the fan base, they're on to them now. Like the fan base is on to the fact that the Wizards continue to pull the wool over their fans' eyes, and I think people are just getting frustrated and they're tired of it.
Yeah, I mean, you saw the attendance. You looked at the games last year. I mean, after the 35-point loss, or where they gave up the 35-point lead to the Clippers, I think
it's embarrassing for the franchise. That set the franchise back, honestly.
It really did. Yeah, the Twitter Spaces and everything was crazy that night. But I think that broke the straw, the camel's back. You saw the attendance from games. You could just see from watching on television. It was very bare in Capital One Arena, and then you had the Miami Heat game where a coach got into an altercation with a fan after the game. So it just went downhill in that second half after losing to the Clippers. But yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head too. They're just a middling franchise right now. There's about 4 or 5 or 6 teams in the East you can name off the top of your head: the Heat, Bucks, Celtics, Sixers, that are kind of just leaps and bounds ahead of the Wizards right now. And the ceiling does look like a play-in team. So if that's your goal every year, and you see other teams rebuild, the Hawks have rebuilt. They've already made an Eastern Conference Finals last year. You've seen other teams rebuild and already leapfrog what the Wizards are doing right now. So it can be frustrating as a Wizard fan. So let's pivot lastly to I do want to quickly get your thoughts on the Johnny Davis picks. I saw on Twitter that you did have you had your information. You said you kept hearing Johnny Davis all day. You got that correct. What were your thoughts on Johnny Davis as a pick at pick 10, and where do you see him fitting? Was there anybody else that you thought the Wizards possibly could have went with instead of Johnny Davis?
Well, I know for a fact that they wanted Dyson Daniels. Coming into the day, the 2 names that I kept hearing were Dyson Daniels and Johnny Davis. And also my intel from around the league was saying that Dyson Daniels, there was no way that he was making it all the way to 10. So that's what really led me to that I knew that Johnny Davis was going to be the pick. The Wizards, they from my intel from inside that building, that those were the 2 names. And so I think that Johnny Davis was a guy that they evaluated, and they think that they can bring in and make him a good combo guard. And as far as players that were available at that pick, I think that that he probably was one of the better available players. That he probably was the correct pick for them to make at that spot. And I think that they're trusting in their development guys being able to come in and help Johnny Davis to improve and be able to be that combo guard. And I think that they were just impressed with some of his leadership intangibles, and they love his size. as a 6'5", bigger two guard who can also defend ones. They like his defensive intensity, and I think that they think that he's a guy who can develop into a good NBA combo guard. So that's what the evaluation that I was getting out of the Wizards building.
Definitely. I like the pick a lot. I liked it a lot. The guy plays hard. I mean, you watch the game against Purdue where he put up 37 points against Jaden Ivey. I mean, he rebounded 8.5 rebounds a game. So the guy is a dog. Tommy Shepard said he's looking for dogs. And like we talked about earlier, he is marketable. He has the Taco Bell commercial, so he is a character guy as well. He plays hard, 110% effort all the time. Mid-range game, his game is predicated on the mid-range game, but I think he can develop into a good shooter. So they do want him to play point guard. Do you see that? Tommy Shepard's talked about that a lot. Do you see that at all in his future?
Yeah, I do, because with today's NBA, it's like, can you run a pick and roll? And so I think that this is a guy who proved on the college level that he can command, those type of offensive sets. So this is a guy, if he can come out here and run, good pick and rolls, and he can get his bigs involved. Like, I think that this is a guy who can control the pace of the game, and he can get smaller defenders on his hip. He can attack the basket, and I think that he will develop into a better spot up shooter than what he showed at Wisconsin. I think that when you look at his Wisconsin tape, this is a guy like if you look at his percentages, you would probably say, oh, this is a guy who might not be the best shooter. But if you watch the film, this is a guy who was taking a lot of highly contested and big shots for Wisconsin. Some of them might not have been of the best looks and opportunities as far as great looks for him. But he had to do that because he was the alpha dog on his team. He's not going to be having to carry and that type of burden with the Wizards. So I think that all of his percentages and what he can do as far as a shooter standpoint, I think that will look better in a more specialized role than as a guy who had the ball in his hands and had to take a lot of bad shots probably last year.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. I saw him create a lot of shots for guys at Wisconsin. They just weren't able to knock down shots, and like you said, he did have to take a lot of last-second shot clock shots because they ran the offense primarily through him, and he was the Big Ten Player of the Year. This guy was a bucket getter, so he was a tough shot maker. So, but lastly here, free agency. Lastly, with Bradley Beal, I know you touched on it a little bit earlier. If you just want to explain for dummies the contract situation for Bradley Beal, why it's better for him to stay with the Wizards financially rather than signing with a different team. And then also, I know it's a loaded question, if you were in the Wizards' shoes, what would you do with the Bradley Beal contract situation? Would you try to initiate a sign and trade with Brad, or would you just let him walk, or what do you think would be in the Wizards' best interest?
Well, the best thing would definitely not to be to let him walk. I think that the Wizards, I mean, the thing is, this play has been 3 years in the making, and so it all points to Bradley Beal signing a supermax contract extension. He and his agent Mark Barton have set this thing up from years in advance. When he signed that that quote unquote contract extension 3 years ago, which was basically a glorified 1+1 deal that would have allowed him to see free agency in his vested 10th year as an NBA veteran, and allows him to sign this big contract. And the Wizards, knowing, and Mark Barton and Bradley Beal have set it up, knowing that the Wizards were in a position where we're going to have to give him that money. Like this has been years in the making, and so I mean, explaining the contract for dummies is $250 million. Bradley Beal, is able to sign this extension and become the highest paid player in the NBA. Like there is nothing that would there's no other scenario that would make sense for him to try to pull off right now. And so for the Wizards, they're just kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. They can't let him walk for nothing. They can't go to this guy who they've allowed them to, pigeonhole them into this situation He's been working them for 3 years. They can't go to him now and say, "Oh, we want you to take less money." Like that's just not going to be a possibility. They can't go to him and try to initiate and sign and trade. That has to be something that he has to initiate to them. So I mean, I think that we all know how this is going to end. Bradley Bill's going to sign his name on the dotted line, and he's going to make a lot of generational wealth for he and his family over the next 24 hours.
Yeah. So I know with no other, the Wizards are the only team that can offer him that contract. I know there was a report saying that the salary cap is going to go up and that he could potentially make $57 million in that last year of his contract, which will be awesome for him and his family, like you said, but it might not be in the best interest for the Wizards, when he is, 34, 33, 32 at the time, 5 years from now. So, but yeah, it's an intriguing situation. Hopefully they can make the best out of it, but Bradley Beal taking that deal, I don't blame him. I don't blame him for taking that money rather than trying to force.
Who can blame him? I mean, like they're going to pick. No sane person in this world is turning down that type of money. And I know that a lot of people talk about Bradley Beal and, that he may be exploring his options and that he wants to win. Yeah, he wants to win in the game of life, like by signing this contract. And I think that, it's from a Wizards standpoint, they just have to hope and pray that, that this guy is able to, maintain his level of play, and that, inevitably when he comes to them over the next few years and request a trade, they're able to still get some type of draft capital or asset capital back for him. And I'm telling you, this is the story is written on the wall. This is how that is going to end. Like I think there's a very low percentage chance that Bradley Beal, once he signs that Supermax contract, that he finishes that contract as a Wizard. I think it's a very low percentage chance of that happening.
Yeah, there was a report from Mark Stein that said he believes he would like to be the Dirk Nowitzki of the Washington Wizards in a sense. Of course, there's a lot of things you have to do to reach that level, but I get what Brad is trying to say in that sense. And then, of course, the interview he's done with Taylor Rooks, where he said he wants to win. And I think he said the worst thing he could do is finish the game without winning. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but, winning and staying with the Wizards, does that really match up? Or is it about, setting your family up with general wealth rather than trying to win? So it's like, do those two things really line up with the decision? So it will be intriguing to see. I know he'll be making the decision soon with free agency starting up. But Troy, I want to thank you for coming on. Is there anything you want to plug before we head out?
Yeah, man. So I have an article coming out in the City paper on Friday. Pretty much a guide to the Wizards offseason. So we'll be talking about the things that have already happened, the drafting of Johnny Davis. I'll give a little bit more insight into the process of how the Wizards came to that selection, and then also previewing the Wizards Summer League. And so looking at what the team, what are they going to be able to get out of their young prospects, and really just kind of doing an inventory check of all of the Wizards assets and seeing what they can continue to build on and what they might be able to possibly trade out. Like I said, I'm going to keep working this Malcolm Brogdon thing, but I think that's very much still a possibility. And so, I think the Wizards, they still got – Tommy's got a couple more tricks up his sleeve for this offseason. So if I were Wizards Twitter, I wouldn't just give up hope and saying that, this is the final roster just yet.
Yeah, I really hope so. I hope this is not it, because right now it does look like a play-in team. So I do hope Tommy can work something out. I just want to thank you guys for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. For your second listen, get up to date on the latest news and rumors in the NBA in just 30 minutes. Every day with Locked On NBA. Locked On NBA, your daily NBA in just 30 minutes. And Troy, I just want to thank you for coming on again. And if you just want to tell the people your Twitter, you can go ahead.
Yeah, man, it's at Troy Haliburton. It's TroyHalibur. Yeah, man, I love interacting with the people. So, yeah, man, if you feel free to at me, ask any questions, and just engage in a nice, respectful dialogue on the internet.
Don't forget the .eth at the end of the handle too.
Hey, come on now. Hey, that Ethereum, man. We out here. I'm getting into the NFT game. I'm getting into the crypto game. Hey, look, man, it's all types of money out there to be made. I'm trying to get me a little piece of the pie.
Yeah, man. Everybody, enjoy your holiday weekend and enjoy the 4th. Have a good one. Hell to the Wizards.